All right. Hi, my name is Jared Brewer, and this is my theories presentation for the last three papers that we had to write. So, let's get straight into it. This is just a brief introduction for my paper, for my presentation. Um, this presentation will discuss the work that I have done to show the connection between three different theories and their impact on how students learn to read and how educators can facilitate that learning. In this presentation, the theories discussed are operant conditioning theory, which is the learning theory I chose, Go's model, which is the bottom up theory that I chose, and schema theory, which is the top down theory that I chose. I will split up each theory and talk about them individually before I talk about their commonalities and their overall implications on several aspects, especially how to use these theories to help our students learn. Like I said before, the learning theory that I chose is operant conditioning theory. So, initially posited by B.F. Skinner, operant conditioning is a learning theory based on strengthening desired behavior by reinforcing that desired behavior and punishing undesired behavior. This theory can show that different types of stimuli can strengthen behavior. As I get a little further into the presentation, that'll make a little bit more sense. So there's different types of reinforcement and punishment. There's four different types. There's positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, positive punishment, and negative punishment. Let's start with positive reinforcement. Positive reinforcement is the action of reinforcing desired behavior by rewarding it when it is exhibited. This could be something as easy as a high five when someone gets something right, or you had a great day today and we're working on your behavior. So here's some Skittles to help you reinforce that behavior and show you that this is how we need to proceed. Negative reinforcement is the idea of taking away an undesired stimulus when desired behavior is exhibited. I think that negative reinforcement is a little hard to understand, and a lot of people have a really hard time, grasping the concept. But when you break it down into two different parts, negative reinforcement is actually pretty easy. There's escape negative reinforcement, which is when an undesired stimulus is presented, um, the learner tries to escape that by doing something to correct it. So let's say a student is in class and they are asked a question and they answer the question incorrectly. Using that escape mentality of negative reinforcement, because let's say they're getting teased or something like that, or they don't feel good that they didn't get the question right, they should look up the right answer and re answer the question to escape that feeling or that teasing. And then there's also avoidant negative reinforcement. Avoidant negative reinforcement is basically, let's say, something that the student knows that they'll get teased. So they try, instead of answering the question if they don't know it, they'll look up the question beforehand, and that's where they'll avoid that undesired stimulus. Moving on to positive punishment. Punishment is the action of adding an undesired stimulus when undesired behavior is observed. So I like to think of that as corporal punishment, giving a spanking when someone does something wrong. Negative punishment is the idea of taking away a desired stimulus when undesired behavior is observed. So that's something like you're grounded or no TV for a month. And how is it related to reading? Um, from our textbook, they talked about how they showed that reading can be done in steps now. And in one study, when students answered questions incorrectly, they had to continue to answer the question until they got the question correct. That shows exactly what I was talking about of negative punishment and how it can be implemented on the reading process. Read a passage, answer a question. If you don't get the question right, keep answering, keep doing it, and they'll eventually become stronger readers because they'll learn to read more for comprehension. We also have to look at the impact of positive reinforcement on our readers, and we reward our students when they do something good. Like, I know at my school we have a reading program where you can get different little perks the more books you complete. Moving on to our next theory, we have Go's model. Positive by Philip Go. This theory was originally discussed in his view, A Simple View of Reading in 1972. It is a bottom up model, which means that it is one that prioritizes the printed text and the meaning of the words as the beginning of the reading process. Go's model can get very, very confusing, so I broke it down into these 8 different steps and I'll explain them. So, first, you have printed text that is viewed one letter at a time. So you just have a word you're reading and you see that one letter at a time. Then, called the iconic image, the printed text is scanned. It's scanned for anything that different sounds, different letters, all that. After that, each letter is added to the character register, and the character register is where all the sound, all the different letters get put, so they can be uh, deciphered and broken down even more into this next step. It's the code book, where letters are they attach their phonemic sound. So we know A says ah or ah. B says buh. It's very easy when it goes to the code book. Then the decoding process begins. So they need to students are putting together. Okay, what is this? What specifically makes this the word? Then step 6, the phonemic sounds are put together on the phonemic tape. So that's where we actually start putting the word together and trying to form what the word sounds like. Next, the librarian attaches meaning to the words in the sentences, and then sentences are created. So the meaning to the words is very, very basic. And then sentences are transported to the place where sentences go when they're understood. This is the final step of Go's model. And like I said, it can get confusing. So, how is this related to reading? Through Go's model, there's a huge, huge, huge emphasis placed on decoding and literacy comprehension. So, they show the link between literacy achievement, decoding, and reading comprehension. They're all put together, and the they showed the link that literacy achievement and decoding have a very good relationship with reading comprehension. But if one falls, the other doesn't really fall. So if we're doing well in literacy achievement and decoding, but then there's a little dip in decoding, reading comprehension does not suffer. Because Go's model is so specific in the different processes and the different places that students can stand in that process, it's easy for us to understand where students struggle in the reading process and to help them with that. The next is schema theory. Schema theory is originally talked about with Richard Anderson and P. David Pearson. And a schema is a network or a knowledge structure of everything that a person knows about a person, place, or process. So everything that I know about my grandma, everything that I know about SpongeBob SquarePants. And this is the top-down theory that I chose. What is schema theory? Let's just start off with the fact that people have schema for everything and they're always expanding. So there are little knowledge structures that have everything that we know about them. And schema theory basically says that that's how we learn. We learn from placing everything we know about a subject or a topic into these schemata. Schemata is plural for schema, into these schemata and making it make sense to ourselves. And there's 3 different ways to change a schema. So there's accretation, which is where new information is presented, but there's no need to change the existing schema. There's tuning, which is where new information is presented in the change. There is a change to the schema. Then there's restructuring, where new information is presented and there's a completely new schema that needs to be created. Um, I'd like to think of accretation as when you learn how to grill some food, you don't necessarily have to find out different ways to grill. You might find a little bit of information about how to grill faster, but it doesn't change your schema on how to grill. Tuning is if you found out that you've been grilling fish the wrong way. So you still know how to grill, but now you're changing your schema to accommodate fish. And restructuring is something completely different. And restructuring, I read in our textbook that it's something like when there's a stereotype about a certain group of people, and you learn something new or have a new experience with that group of people, your schema changes completely. There's a complete overhaul of that schema. How is this related to reading? I think that it brought up such ideas as how do readers use prior knowledge to understand new reading material, and how much of an impact does personal experience have on reading comprehension? It's very, very important to remember that schema theory is very personal and very related to what does that one person know. So if I know a lot about the 70s and I write a paper about the 70s, or I'm asked a question about the 70s, my response, my paper, whatever I want to call it, is going to be a little bit more detailed than someone who doesn't know the 70s as much as I do. I have more to pull out of that schema than someone that hasn't had that exposure or hasn't had any interactions with that decade. So, what are the implications of these theories in the classroom? So, first off, I'd like to ask the overarching question: how do we increase the functional reading skills of our students using these theories? Separately, I'd like to say that with operant conditioning theory, we can reward our students for the reading skills that will help them become better readers. We need to be aggressive with our rewards and our positive reinforcement. With Go's model, I think we need to clearly address where our students are struggling and figure out that this is something that can be helped and something that we can work through. And with schema theory, I think that increasing our reading material, we can expand their schema on different topics, or playing on schemas that are overdeveloped already, we can get them to understand different concepts. It's going to be easier for someone to understand a concept when they already are well versed on the overarching topic. With that question answered, now we can ask, where do our students struggle most? And with an overarching goal, how can we get specific and implement short-term objectives? So, where do our students struggle most? We need to address that. We need to figure out, where are they struggling? What are we doing that is not beneficial to them? What strategies can we help them uh, develop that can help them be better readers? With that overarching goal, how can we get specific and implement short term objectives? We need to be clear, concise, and have smart goals. What technology implications can we use? For operant conditioning, I found Class Dojo. Class Dojo is something that a bunch of teachers use, and we utilize them every day. But I think it's good for positive reinforcement when we see students uh, exhibiting good reading skills during our reading time or dear time. We can add points, message their parents, tell them she's done a great job, he's done a great job, and we can give them tangible markers for them to understand that they have good reading skills. Through Go's theory, I use Starfall for my students. And Starfall, students are able to break down words syllable by syllable and touch the word, understand what it means, touch the sound, understand what the sound sounds like. And for schema theory, I found Stormboard. So I didn't use Stormboard before, but it is very beneficial. It's like an online brainstorming website where I can create webs and nets of different topics that I want to um, understand better.